will be starting the recording for that now if you want to share your slide. Thank you.
Thank you. So hopefully everyone can see that.
We can, yeah.
Lovely. So, yeah, hello everyone. So today we're going to be talking about the sensory maps at Loughborough University. And my name is Emma. I am the Student Experience and Accessibility Librarian here at Loughborough University. So my role involves overseeing student experience and a lot of UX research on top of accessibility, making sure that we are up to guidance and policies around that. And my colleague Kat will introduce herself.
Thanks. Yep, my name's Kat Halliday. I am an academic librarian in my day job. So I do kind of faculty liaison. My specialty is business. And then I also do various kind of EDI roles across the university and the library. Oh, yep. Also, just a slide to say thanks to our colleague Catherine Shipley. She couldn't be here today, but has also taken part in the project. So we always want to give credit where credit's due. So yeah, big thanks to her.
I just wanted to mention briefly just a bit about our library. So we are the only library based on campus at Loughborough University. We can host over 1,000 students, and we're kind of like an upside down cone shape. It's a very interesting building if people haven't been. And there are 4 levels and you enter in on level 3. So this project came about with Catherine and Kat around kind of looking into the idea of a sensory map and kind of laying out the building with a different perspective of wayfinding to start off with. So what is a sensory map and why are they important? So a sensory map outlines what sensory experiences a visitor can expect in the library, such as bright light, noisy areas, strong smells, temperature changes, that kind of thing. This helps people plan their visits in ways that feel comfortable for them. They're particularly helpful for neurodivergent visitors, as well as people with sensory sensitivities, hearing or sight loss, anxiety, or other conditions that may affect how they process their environment. However, anyone can use a sensory map. For example, someone wishing to avoid a busy area or someone who prefers hands-on tactile resources or a specific type of study space. By clearly showing sensory hotspots and calmer areas, sensory maps support more inclusive access and can help visitors navigate the library with confidence. Give a bit of context around Loughborough University itself. So in February 2026, the Wellbeing and Inclusivity team here on campus provided figures for the library service detailing the number of students with attending status who have had their additional needs assessed. These figures specifically include students who have been formally assessed by the Disabled Students Allowance or Student Services. It's important to note that this data does not account for students who are awaiting for a diagnosis or have an additional needs report. So these figures currently disclosed at the time over 2,000 students attending student services that had disclosed. The number will much likely be more now. And the sensory map is valuable for everyone, not just for people with sensory sensitivities. It helps all visitors quickly find the space that match their needs and can affect with concentration, focus, finding the right environment for them. By showing this information clearly, the map can give users choice and help them be overall a positive experience within the library.
We also looked at this project not necessarily just from an accessibility lens, but also from a critical information literacy lens. So looking especially at the work of Freire and also a lot to do with critical theory to help kind of expand the lens which we used on this. Next slide, please. Thank you. So some of you have probably heard of the traditional term of information literacy. It's what we use, think of the SCONAL 7 pillars. You probably all remember what that is from library school, or you've heard it mentioned in library meetings. Traditional information literacy skills look at skills-based learning, focus on correctness and emphasise evaluation via checklist profiles. The library is always presented as a neutral space and complies with, again, academic norms. So by applying the critical information literacy lens, it led us to a more theory-informed process. The focus on power, so not just who is in power, but also who doesn't have power and agency within the building and kind of decisions and planning, etc. Emphasises context and authority, looks at the library as a political space, not kind of Labour or Conservative, but a political entity in itself, and then also questions academic norms. Thank them.
Okay, so I'll just take you through the guides and steps that we used when creating the sensory map. So this is kind of an overview of the process that we did, which we'll talk about in more detail, but initially started with what librarians do best, research, and then moving on to prototyping, getting user testing feedback, which is really, really important to us throughout this process, and then eventually the launch and measuring impact. So initially in the research, we looked generally at kind of sensory maps that are already out there. So we looked at places like Alton Towers and different public libraries and university libraries that have already showcased their sensory maps. We also liaised with some of the academic libraries as well to get advice on how they navigated it, what support they used, what kind of tools they used, and kind of got a good grounding and a good starting point of things to consider and things to steer away from as well, which was really helpful. Then we went on to building a prototype. So it was a very basic prototype initially, just kind of our interpretation of things. And then we moved on to kind of user testing. So we got staff in from support services who help students with sensory sensitivities and have more knowledge and grounding around that. And they came around and did some walks and advice on things we might want to mention in our prototype and how our prototype could be interpreted. And then we went to do a snapshot from students of what they found of our maps. So we did a black and white version, a full colour version, a part colour version. We also did a visual story as well, which is kind of just what it says really, images that take you through the journey of navigating the library space. And we put this picture here, so this snapshot display, up in different buildings on campus. So students could quickly give us a snapshot information of their preference, what they interpreted from it, what they liked, what they didn't like. So that allowed us to get kind of a broader perspective of kind of how they interpreted our initial prototype. We also did a staff survey as well, so that went out to all staff, both in the library and outside of it as well, and they could give feedback about it. And we contacted the staff neurodiverse network as well, who was able to give some feedback and advice on the prototype. We then moved on to some more kind of detailed user testing. So we got focus groups involved and got students to come in, and we paid them for their time to give kind of feedback on all the prototypes that we'd made. And this was some of the feedback that we got that we found quite useful. The temperature one was a really good one for us because we were not sure how to put temperature on there, because for some people it can be cold, for some people it can be hot, and one student was like, just put where the AC units are, and I was like, genius. So it was really helpful to have their experience on things. It was also interesting with the nose icon as well. So we had the nose icon to identify smells that were in the cafe, and that made complete sense to everybody, and they were like, yeah, cafe, that's food smells. But then we also put it in the stairwell because we had someone feedback that it can have quite a strong concretey smell, and it was interesting that was considered a negative. So they were like, oh, so it's a bad smell, and we were like, oh no, it's just like a strong smell that somebody might identify, like perfume or scents and things. So it's quite interesting to have the interpretations on that. It also helped us with identifying how we would do our sound levels as well. So kind of the way we interpreted it, we've decided that we needed some more feedback on that. So overall, the focus groups were really, really helpful. We had about 3 of those in total with 4 to 6 students in attendance. So then that made us move on to our second prototype, and then from that we established that full colour was probably the most preferred one with students, because they were able to easily pick out and identify from the key what elements they wanted to look at. We got some feedback on the colours as well, because we initially had the toilets in red, and someone was like, oh, that's a danger sign. And I was like, okay, we don't want the toilets to be dangerous. So we kind of had a look at different colours and feeding those back too, and getting feedback from support services at the same time, just to kind of make sure that we were being accessible with that too. This is like a comparison. So the one on the left was our very basic one that we started off through. I think we had 3 or 4 prototypes kind of molding in the end, and then settled on the one on the right. We do still see this as an ever-changing prototype as well, so we will continue to improve as things go on. But as you can see, we made kind of significant changes and differences throughout based on feedback. So the launch and impact, so this has kind of just been created and kind of launched out early January time. So we have put it on our repository, so it's open for all users and all people can access. And we're looking to promote it in open days, halls, inductions. Support services has already taken a load of them as well, and they're really eager to use them. Staff disability groups and academic staff as well. We've recently just had an open day on campus, and they were really well received and got really nice verbal feedback as well, and a lot of parents and students taking them, so that was really quite nice to see. And then how we'll measure the impact in the future is we'll monitor the engagement on the repository, access via the student services and how many handouts are used in open days, and also looking for verbal feedback as well. So what to include in a sensory map? So there's lots of different things that you can include. On there is just a key of some of the stuff that we identified and put in there. So where the bathrooms are, identifying if there's natural light or artificial light, obviously the accessible facilities. We put noticeable smells on there. Took a long time to kind of identify how we were going to word that. The AC unit, the free period supplies as well, we thought was really helpful, and also where the friendly staff are too, because sometimes we get feedback from students that are like, oh, I'm not sure if we can approach them, and that kind of thing as well. So it was nice that we can identify that we are here to kind of help and support as well. Okay, so that's us.